Hey there, comic fam! Welcome back to Climbing Comics. In today's sesh, we'll be doing some comic book dirty grading. Hey there again, comic fam! Welcome back to Climbing Comics. So, I wanted to start a new video series where I actually try to both learn how to grade and kind of solicit some feedback from you guys. So, as part of this hobby, I kind of got into grading a little bit of last year, but I wanted to kind of hone on those skills and kind of course correct based off of getting some of the grades wrong. So, why do comic grading? A lot of people that'll watch this video are already into comics, but for those that aren't very much so into comics, I think the reason is as collectibles get more and more sought after and not as many of them are out there, collectors actually are looking for like either comics, cards, or any other collectibles that are, that have higher appeal. And how do they have higher appeal if there's no standard in how to rate one versus the other? So over the last, I believe, like 20 to 30 years, third-party grading companies came out like CGC, Certified Grading Company, as well as CBCS. For example, CGC actually got into the grading business because they originally used to do like things like coins and paper stamps and whatnot. So it just made sense for them to go into other parts of paper like comics. So the third-party grading industry, essentially, I believe at least CGC started off, since they started off with coins, had a rating of like 1 to 10, and kind of the nomenclature they use is a little bit misleading because they're based off of coins and stamps. So things that are mint or fine, very fine, good, very good, may have different meanings than what people normally talk about when they say good. For example, good kind of is a lower grade book, but for people that don't know this, they may think that it's actually a very good book. Outside of this, I think one of the things that I wanted to learn when doing comic book grading is essentially a lot of the opportunities out there when buying books are with raw books. For example, like let me give an example. Raw books are ones that are like not slabbed, not put into these plastic cases. Once these get put into these plastic cases, you essentially have a grade from 1 through 10 that is assigned to it by CGC or CBCS or any other third-party grading company, and you kind of have a good fair market value in which, like, if this is graded a 3.5, this should cost X amount. If it's graded a 5.0, it should cost another amount. But if it's not graded by a third party company, you kind of have to either trust the seller, or if you learn the skills of how to do this quote unquote dirty grading, you'll have a good idea about what you're buying. And I think it's very important, at least for me, because when I go out to buy books, I want to know what I'm buying and what to look for. Essentially, I trust a lot of the sellers that are selling out there, but you always have to protect yourself as well as if you're trying to sell your book. I think it's also good because as your collection grows, essentially you want to know the value of your collection. And you can't tell the value of your collection because you may have a really low grade of a certain book that may cost like a very small amount, or if it's actually in really high grade, it could be quite a bit of money. So what I wanted to do when learning how to do this grading is what a lot of people on YouTube and my friends in the comic book community have told me is the Overstreet Guide to Grading Comics. So this is kind of what I picked up. So this is the one from a couple years back, and it has a lot of good pieces of information where it tells you the history of grading, the 10-point grading scale, how to do grading, and it actually gives descriptions as to like what's 1.0, 1.5, 2.0, and they give you examples of each. They actually show pictures of what to look for in each of those types of books. So this is a really good guide. And one thing is it tells you what to look for. Like, for example, paper quality, spine ticks, folds and creases, tears and whatnot, paper quality, acidic odor, things like this. So what I plan to do is go over each of those items with you and look at them for a specific book and kind of just make a guess on the grade, right? So I'm going to break this video into two separate portions essentially. The first portion will be just looking at the comic book that I've chosen. I've taken videos of, the front cover, all of the pages, the staples in between, all the way to the back page. So you could watch that, and then you can make your assessment as to what you think the grade is. After that, I'll switch over and I'll be doing my own assessment and look at all of my different criteria that I've based off of Comic Book's price guide, as well as CBCS on their website has certain tiers. I think it's not as specific as the Overstreet guide to grading comics, but then they have their different tiers to what to look for based off of the grades that they put, right? So I know it's all subjective, but I think if we together can, quantify a lot of the defects and kind of figure out like where this lands, I think we could find a bit of a range. And with that range, we could kind of, if we were to buy this book out in the public, then we would know how much we would want to pay for it. So yeah, after that second part, I'll give my guess of the grade. And then, in the comments section, definitely please, let's talk about why you chose that grade, and let's course correct each other. I think the big part of this for me is kind of learning from the community and teaching people what I know so far. So disclaimer, I am by far no means a professional grader or anything like this. That's why these are very amateur type of grading. You'll see that I'm gonna take notes on backing boards and whatnot, compare it to the book, and figure out where we are. So let's get started. All right, so for today's grading, we're going to be grading Green Lantern number 55. And like I mentioned before, I'll be using the Overstreet Guide to Grading Comics. And I just marked a couple of pages here, using the 10-point grading scale. So this is actually a really good grading scale. I'll show here the fact that, from different grades, they allow a minimum and maximum number of defects. So a lot of people forget they need to use this along with the list of defects to look for in order to figure out where the grade is for their book. There's a really good section here on how to grade a comic book, how to describe a comic book to others. So let's jump straight into it. So I have a couple things with me to help aid in this process. I have gloves. I know some people don't like to use gloves because they like to look at their books. I also brought a flashlight, an LED flashlight, to kind of look for those types of, I guess, like those color touches, those inks. So you'll see certain lines, stuff like here. You'll have older books where people try to use color touch and dab and fill in those lines. Outside of that, I have a micro fleece, which like I would use to wipe this down, wipe down my surface that I'm using to clean. All of this kind of is in that Overstreet guide to grading comics in terms of how to have good clean surfaces. So let's start her off. I have taken it out of the bag and board already just to show you some things. Let's just do a little count. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and what I'm looking for here is the spine ticks. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I already see 16, and that's a conservative number. I've counted a couple more. But for me, I have this guide here that'll help me figure out what I have to put on that list, right? So the number of spine ticks and whatnot. So I have 16 there. I will mark that down. So the thing is, I have a lot of time to do this right now. When you're out and you're at a Comic-Con and stuff like that, there are certain things you'll just kind of look for. The reason why I'm taking down each of these numbers is because I already know this is a very low grade book. If this was a very high grade book in the 9.0s, 9.2s, 9.4s, 9.6s, I would hardly see as many spine ticks here, not as many of these huge creases here. So this is like a 5-inch crease, another 5-inch crease, probably another 6-inch crease here, and like this crease right there as well. So I want to make sure that I look at color breaking creases. So there are at least like 4 color breaking creases that I see right here. You see all along this vertical line. This book has definitely been loved. It's been read quite a bit. So I'm gonna say my color breaking, I have at least 4 of them. I'll take a look at the edge. So looking at the edge, there's quite a bit of edge wear. This looks kind of clean, but you see some of this chipping right here. Yep, we see some more chipping. You have a dog ear right here. And this is, I would call this kind of a rounded, a braided corner, right? So edge wear, yes. Staple condition. So the outside staple condition looks good. Let's go in and look at the center fold for the center, the condition of the staples in the center. So we see here, I would say these staples are very tight. There's no rust. I see hardly any rust on this. So this looks good. Looking at the back also, you could see the kind of rip a little bit there as well. So I will say that the staple condition is good, yes. Tight pages, yes. And I'm going to make a note that the back is a little loose. So the next thing I have is like the external color. So I have a light in this direction just to see if the gloss is still there. So I do see some good gloss here, more so in the back. Probably there was some sun damage or some wear on the front. So I will say that the exterior color wear, I would say it's fair. I talked about the corners earlier, but I would say these corners are not as sharp. If these came right off of the presses, they would be super sharp. and color chips. So these things are called color chips. So I would say we have at least, I counted before here, at least 7 color chips. Tears. You won't really see too many tears in the front here, but that's important that you open up the book so you see some of the tears possibly on the inside. You see a little of the chipping here. There's some staining right here. Staining bleeds into the outside. So tears were okay. Paper color. This is kind of hard. We go from white pages to off-white pages to cream pages to tan pages is what I usually see from CGC. But I would say, like, with the age of this book, I would probably call this off-white just because it has that color right here. So there are a lot of different items that the Overstreet guide talks about. I started off at the 5 just to see if it's above or below that. It definitely is below that. We have things like in very good condition to 3.0s, to goods, and 2.5s. So I kind of stuck around the 2.5, 2.0. And the reason that I see this is because we're allowed, like, binding printing does not affect, no reflectivity, yes. Book length creases, yes. Significant wear, yes. Discoloration, some foxing, somewhat. No date stamp, no spine split. Yes, we have a spine roll. Spine roll. So spine roll is like when you stack a ton of books on top of each other and they aren't fully flat. Sometimes you see it kind of curve up, like at the spine. So it'll like curve up. We do see some spine roll here. Degraded staples, we're okay there. We saw some tears in the back, and not too much rust. Staple tears, yeah, we have that in the back. Rust migration, no. Stress lines, yes. Rounded corners, yes. Centerfold loose or detached, no. Moderate tears, moderate, yes. Acid odor, so you kind of have that Silver Age smell. So I smelled it beforehand and it definitely has a little bit of that acid odor, but not too much. Paper quality, I would say, was off-white. Missing pieces, no. You see that they kind of have very specific amounts of lengths. Amateur repairs, no. Readability preserved, and coupon cutout not allowed. So from this, I essentially kind of counted out quite a bit of issues here. Oh wow, maximum number. So we do see this this 25. I would say we would kind of fit in like this good range around the low 20s. So with this being in the low 20s, I think I'm gonna move forward and I'm gonna say that my grade for this is actually a 2.0. So from this, hopefully we get that 2.0. Thanks. So after taking a look at Green Lantern 55, so definitely please put your grades below so we could compare notes. And what I've come to realize is that, you know, kind of looking at CGC graders notes, they don't give as much detail as I'd like. So what I'm trying to do here is essentially build a library of a series of videos here where I try to find books at each of these different ranges and try to see if I could actually fill out like my knowledge for what is a 3.0, what is a 2.0, what is a 9.8, what's a 9.6. So trying to build out that library, and hopefully with the help of you guys to figure out like how we all could learn how to do some of this grading. So if you like this type of content and you want to see more and, you know, grade more books with me, please definitely give that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and click on that bell icon so you're notified of when I come out with new content. Man, this was quite a trip. So essentially, from my comic journey to yours, keep making it your own. Thanks all. Bye.